Kia ora, everyone. It is 1 minute to start, so we'll just give a few more people time to arrive. So grab that last minute cup of tea, and then we'll head away. Right, good. Majumwa, everybody. My name is Brendan Holland. I'm the Principal Engagement Advisor at the Tamatarawa, the Water Authority. And look, we're here today to run through the, my apologies, just getting my notes here. The Network Environmental Performance Report. My apologies. So look, firstly, I'll just run us through with an opening karakia and just give a little bit of introduction, and then we'll get straight into our speakers because you haven't come here to hear me. Whakataka te hau ki te ura, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia makinakina kia uta, kia mataratara kia tai, e he ake ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he, ti he, Māori ora. As mentioned, my name is Brendan Holland. Our speakers today, we've got Sarah McFall, the Head of Systems, Strategy and Performance. We've also got Molly Carruthers, our Senior Data and Insights Analyst, and Valeta Roots, Principal Water and Wastewater Engineer, and Bella Whittle, our Manager for Systems Reporting. So the latter two are just going to be in support when we get to Q&A at the end. We had an internal presentation on this the other day, and I think it actually came in at under half an hour. We have 60 minutes today, so we've got plenty of time. We do encourage questions. What we might, with that encouragement, though, just ask if you'd be kind enough to put them into the chat. And what we'll do, we'll allow the presentation to proceed, and then at the end, we'll address as many of those, if not all of those questions, as we can. And we really encourage you to bring them here. We've got the people here to answer them. So. And I will just make sure with my notes that there's nothing else. So I think, well, there's a couple of things to probably say. So the first thing is the Network Environmental Performance Report. We tend to run around the building with a bit of familiarity after a while, and we call it NEPR and NEPR. We may run into a little bit of that terminology with the acronyms and that, so please bear with us. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it is the Network Environmental Performance Report that you have turned up to listen to. The report's compiled from data provided by network water supply operators, and this is the third year, but the first year we've had a complete picture. And that's for three reasons. The report reflects now 3 years of mandatory measures, reporting with new measures added annually. We have more complete data set with all 71 network operators having submitted data. And thirdly, previously it was only drinking water, but now also includes wastewater. And I think that is probably enough from me. And I am going to share our presentation, and it should come through live on the screen. And without further ado, I will hand over to Sarah, who no doubt you have turned up to listen to, and not me. So can I just confirm, Sarah, with a thumbs up that you've got that on your screen now?
Yep, I can see that. Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you. Over and out.
Thanks for that intro, and thanks everyone for joining our session today. I actually don't think people are here to listen to me. I think they're very interested in what Molly's going to talk about when we actually dig into the data and what we found this year. But as you said, Brendan, this is our third Network Environmental Performance Report. This is something that we are mandated to do under our legislation. We collect data from network operators, and then we need to publish an annual report highlighting those findings. If we go to the next slide, we can see that we've been on a bit of a journey with the report. So the first year very much was our first year and having these mandatory measures. They were focused on drinking water. One of the things that we called out in that first report was the need for better quality information. And that's important for the public, so they understand what's happening with their water services. Important for us because obviously we use that information to think about how best to target the tools that we have, but also important for network operators themselves to have good information when they're making decisions about where to invest in infrastructure upgrades and other improvements to services. So that was a real call out in our first year. In our second year, I would say we carried on with that focus on improving the data. In our second year, we had some static data about wastewater for the first time, largely though we were focused on drinking water, quite a focus on water loss as one of the things that we really called out. And for the first time, we actually did more of a deep dive into a subset of the data in terms of water loss and a couple of other things with some of our operators to see if we could improve the quality of the data and how it was being recorded and reported to us. And then this year, as Brendan said, we really have a much more comprehensive national picture across drinking water and now wastewater. It's been really exciting to see that information come in and to be able to pull some pretty impactful insights from the information. And you may have seen that there's been quite a lot of media interest in the report this year, which has been great. That is a testament to the information we're provided by operators and a huge amount of work for our teams in testing the data, checking it's accurate and pulling the report together. So it's been really good to see that improvement year on year. And we're starting now to have some trend data, which we will talk about, and that's coming through in our recommendations as well. So if we go on to the next slide. So as we said, this is our kind of first more complete national picture, bringing in not just the static wastewater data, but much more wastewater information. It covers, as you can see there, about 84% of New Zealanders. So we're reporting on those public networks and some government organisations. So that's councils, the water organisations, CCOs, and then, a small number of government agencies report to us too. This year, everybody reported to us, so that's 71 network operators reporting. So that gives us a really good data set to work from. It's also a really important time to have such a comprehensive picture because, as we know, the system is under reform and we have our new water organisations being established now and more coming online next year. So really important to have that evidence base for them as they look at what they need to do in their regions and towns to improve water services. So if we go to the next slide, question about whether the Prezo will be shared. I don't see why not. And we're recording it too, and we'll put it on our website. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, thanks. So what did we find at a high level? I don't think any of these findings would be a big surprise to people on this webinar, probably not a big surprise to the public. We know that our infrastructure and our water networks in particular are under pressure, and that definitely comes through in the data that we have collected this year. And that's across both drinking water networks and wastewater networks. One of the things that we had quite a focus on this year in terms of wastewater were the number of overflows. That definitely got quite a lot of media interest about the rate of those. I think one of the really interesting things, though, is also what the causes of the overflows and looking at that high number of blockages as well as capacity issues. And Molly will talk about that in more detail. We know also our drinking water networks are still an issue, and we talk quite a bit about water loss. So again, something we'll dig into a little bit further along in the webinar. one of the things that we also focused on this year was not just the water loss, but some of the changes that are happening in the system to kind of get on top of that issue in terms of metering. And I think there's some really interesting information about metering and the kind of correlation between uptake of metering and water usage. And then stormwater is something that we have covered at a very high level in the report. We talk about its relationship with wastewater and obviously overflows. It's something that will be a focus for us in coming years. We're just starting to do more work in the stormwater space, so that is something we will be reporting on in future. So if we go to the next slide, and then I think I'm handing over and we're getting actually into the information. So there are some things that we are using this data as part of our kind of interventions and tools to kind of work with the sector and work alongside the sector to improve the performance of our networks. So, I mean, shining a light on the performance of our infrastructure is a really important function that we have. We have a role in system oversight and providing that national overview. We also have an important role in standardization. And so this is one of the things that we've been really stepping into over the last couple of years. We have launched New Zealand's first wastewater environmental performance standards last year. We'll be coming out to talk to the sector about more standards soon. We are also starting work on the National Engineering Design Standards. So we have a really big focus on how we can standardize both infrastructure, consenting processes, so that we can provide greater consistency and certainty for operators when they're making investment decisions, reduce cost and streamline processes where we can. We are also quite focused on making it easier to provide that information to us and improving our templates and guidance. We know that it's an impost on the sector that when we ask for information every year, we know that it takes time for people to do it. We know people have to take a lot of care with it because getting a decimal point in the wrong place can really kind of make the findings look quite strange, and we had a little bit of that this year. So we really appreciate the time it takes for people to report to us, and we are looking at how we can improve our processes, templates and guidance to make that easier for everyone who contributes to our data and to this report, to make it as good as we can and provide the public with a really good product that where they can see how their local water services are performing. So I'm going to pause there and I'm handing over to Molly, I think now, so we can actually have a look at what we found. So over to you, Molly.
Good, thank you, Sarah. So as we said, one of our key focus areas this year was wastewater. We found that through some of our submitted wastewater data that our wastewater networks across the country appear to be under pressure. So in the 24-25 reporting year, we've had over 11,000 wastewater overflows. We think that this is likely to possibly be a bit of an underestimate as well, just with the frequency of reporting and the accuracy of how these are calculated and measured. Things like capacity constraints of the network are one of the biggest causes of our overflows. So that's due to population going through the network and extreme weather events, particularly in our urban areas. And then another big one is blockages from things like fats and oils, wet wipes, and tree roots. So public education is a really key way that we can help reduce the incidences of blockages being a cause of an overflow. We have also found that our CCTV inspection rate remains quite low, so about 10% of our below ground assets have been CCTV inspected in the last 5 years, which is something that could definitely be improved on. Next slide, please. So our wastewater overflows, what drives these wastewater overflows? So an overflow occurs when untreated wastewater is discharged from the network out into the surrounding environment, and whether that's land or water it doesn't matter, it's still counted as an overflow. And we also are interested in how these overflows are being monitored, recorded and predicted. So whether that's through SCADA, hydraulic modelling, and then the notifications of those being verbal, written, or a mixture of both. We did notice quite a lot of gaps in that reporting data accuracy and the completeness of both the methodology for predicting overflows and the methodology for reporting them. And as you can see in this infographic here, our leading cause of overflows is blockages across all of our population densities, and then network capacity, especially for those metro areas, is very closely behind. And our network capacity is also affected by stormwater ingress, which is why that's quite high in those metro areas, where the capacity of the network is affected by both the population running through it and extreme weather events where there's poorer conditions of pipe that allow ingress of stormwater that basically makes the network become over capacity, leading to a higher number of overflows. Next slide, please. Carry on with our wastewater. We were interested in looking at not only where is our wastewater discharges going, but the volume of these discharges. So we've got a summary of the discharge location and the volume, and the colours down the bottom represent the level of treatment of that discharge volume. So the majority of our wastewater discharges, about 74%, are going to marine and estuarine areas, which is something that makes sense given our sort of geographic distribution of New Zealand, and also the majority of these discharges to marine and estuary are tertiary plants, so the highest level of treatment. Next slide, please. So levels of treatment, the majority of our treatment plants in New Zealand are secondary or tertiary treated. So we have 3 levels of treatment. Primary is the very basic level of physical solid removal. Secondary, we have a bit of a biological removal of organic contaminants. And tertiary is sort of the advanced processes involving things like filtration, UV disinfection, to achieve a really high quality of effluent coming out of that treatment plant. So the majority of wastewater volume that's treated in the metro areas is tertiary level treated. Next slide, please. So our drinking water performance, moving on from our wastewater, we've found through the data that our key measures such as leakage, use and efficiency of the network vary quite a lot in terms of their performance across our organisations that reported. As a general trend this year, our median household use has increased. We're noticing that there's areas of the country where metering coverage is uneven. So some organisations have over 90% and some organisations have less than 15% of their network connections being metered, sorry. We also have still a high prevalence of abstraction take consent exceedances, so the volume or the flow rate of the abstraction take point has been exceeded quite significantly in some areas. And same as last year, we've also noticed that quite a lot of networks still have high leakage measured by both their infrastructure leakage index and their overall water loss. Next slide, please. So into our leakage, our infrastructure leakage index, it's a high level indicator of the efficiency of a network and sort of its propensity to leakage and how effective the leakage management practices are across that network. So we've got a map here that shows of the regions that provided us enough data to calculate this, what is sort of their baseline or average ILI throughout that region, and which category, according to sort of the international guidelines, does that fall into. So anything greater than 8 is very inefficient, and we like the ILI to be somewhere around 2 or less. So you can have a look there and see maybe what regions are of interest to you and where they sit. We also found this year that our reporting and the accuracy of our infrastructure leakage index measure increased quite significantly, which is really good as well. And of those councils that have reported to us 2 years in a row now, so 23-24 and 24-25, we did see in quite a few instances that their ILI was starting to come down a little bit. So that's really positive as well. Next slide, please. So our water metering, this is something that has not changed too much over the past couple of years. Around 61% of our residential connections are metered. The majority of our operators where there's a high incidence of metering in their network, we're seeing, so that's around more than 95% of their connections, we are seeing that their total water consumption is quite a lot below the country median. So we're seeing that water metering does actually have an effect on our network consumption overall. We also know that water metering does help improve the accuracy of our water balance calculations, so water sent to the network, water consumed, water lost, and water estimated to be lost. And it also is an enabling factor of better network management as well. So it's reassuring to see that we do have quite a good number of our residential and non-residential connections metered. Next slide, please. So one of our key drinking water measures is our median household use, and that is how much water is being used by our residential connections across the 3 population densities per connection per day. So we normalise it back down to that really sort of simple litres a connection a day unit. We saw, and again, like the infrastructure leakage index, that there's been a big increase in the number of network operators that are providing this residential consumption data. So we had about 59% response rate last year, up to 96% this year. So that's really good to see. There's still some concern over the accuracy of our reported results for the median household use. And that's something where metering or sort of automated monitoring systems of networks can be really effective in increasing the accuracy of our water use information. So our overall median this year was 678 litres a day, and that has come from 604 in 23-24, but just being aware that we have got a lot more information this year. Next slide, please. So another key focus of the report this year is our consenting and compliance. Close to half of our existing wastewater consents require renewal within the next 10 years. We're hoping that as we move to the new wastewater standards, we can improve the consistency and the compliance with renewal cadence over time and provide guidance and better standard for what we expect operators to adhere to. So we're still aware that there is considerable non-compliance with wastewater consent conditions, whether that be discharge or overflows, and yeah, these new wastewater standards are going to set us a consistent framework to align new and somewhat existing consents with as well. So alongside these wastewater non-compliances, we also have about 240 drinking water consents that are going to expire in the next decade. And as I said earlier, we've also had quite a few of those drinking water take consents be non-compliant with their rate of take or their total volume of take as well. We also have been working really hard to consolidate our sources of truth in terms of our wastewater consent data. So that's something that the authority's been working on over the past few months, and that will really help align with our new incoming wastewater standards as well. Next slide, please. So as you can see, we've got our consent expiries here. We have drinking water at the top and wastewater at the bottom. The majority of our expired wastewater consents are discharged to water. What we have noticed for our wastewater consents is that compared to last year, there's been a big increase in the number of consents that are expiring within the next 10 years and a big decrease in the number of consents operating under Section 124 of the Resource Management Act, which is essentially where a temporary consent can be granted until a new permanent one has been approved and there's no remaining appeals on that. So that's really good. Drinking water, we've still got a large number of consents that are well within their expiry date, so more than 10 years. And again, I think our upcoming wastewater standards will help with these renewals of these consents within the expired or the expiring with 0 to 10 years time. Next slide, please. So overall, we had 100% submission rate from all of our 71 operators this year. Our completeness improved for drinking water and was also very good for wastewater. Some areas where we think that the reliability and the data confidence could be improved is our asset condition, water loss, and overflow monitoring. And those are very key measures as well. So that's a big one that we're looking for, how we can help the sector improve on that data reliability. Our pipes, so our below ground asset, both the actual condition grading and the percentage of below ground assets that have been assessed for condition, we think that the lower rate of inspection is correlated perhaps with the low number of pipes in poor condition. That number may actually be an underestimate. And our financial data was also another area where reliability could be improved, and we have had some input from the Commerce Commission and the Office of the Auditor General to help us improve that and get work towards getting higher quality financial data as well. That is our little deep dive into some of the data, and I'll hand back to Sarah now to finish off.
Thanks so much, Molly. And I can see there are some questions that we'll come back to. I think I just have one more slide before we get into the questions, and that is what have we recommended this year? So as people will know from previous reports, we make recommendations, and this year we've got a few themes. Ongoing theme is about improving the quality of the data. As Molly said, it's getting better, but some areas, particularly the financial data, are not where we would like them to be. Other areas, so overflows, obviously one of the kind of key focus areas for the report. So we've made 3 kind of related recommendations in that space about prioritising maintenance, both routine and preventative maintenance, to reduce the risk of overflows. Another thing that came through based on the percentage of overflows that are caused by blockages, which we know will be something that operators will find very difficult to deal with when you've got people sticking things down the sink or down toilets that they shouldn't. So we've recommended thinking about public education campaigns to try and address blockages and working with local communities on something along those lines. We've also made a recommendation to address asset condition and infiltration and ingress issues. So that's around the overflows. Then again, talking about water loss, again, another feature of this report. Obviously looking at ways to continue to reduce water loss. So that could be through the use of metering. As Molly talked about, we've got some pretty interesting data about meters, pressure management where appropriate, and looking sort of to the future to be as resilient as possible with our networks. And then just better understanding of the networks themselves. Obviously, a lot of these are below the ground and hard to do condition assessments, but we do call out the need to improve monitoring, inspection, and data quality to make better, smarter investment decisions and know where upgrades are required. So those are the main recommendations that we've called out. Molly also mentioned that we have referred to both the Commerce Commission and the Office of the Auditor General, who have a role playing with different hats on, but have a role in working with the system to improve performance. So we have referred to their roles and are interested in working alongside them over the next year or so. So that's it from me, and I think we're into questions. Is that right, Brendan? We are.
It is indeed, Sarah. So thank you very much, Sarah, Molly. Fantastic. But we've got a couple of questions, I think, at this stage. In fact, it might be 3. So we will get into them. I guess first thing I just want to say no surprises here. Excuse me, there's an immense amount of data that we're collating here. And some of the questions, if they do dive into that detail, and we just literally haven't got them at our fingertips right now, but we have got them, it might be a case of acknowledging the question and coming back to you. So I hope that's understood, but with best intentions, the intention is that we, with the team mentioned, so obviously mentioned Sarah, Molly, we've also got Valita and Bella here as well. So David, I'll go to your question first. How was the ILI weighted at the council or district level? Was any differentiation made between metropolitan, provincial and rural areas? Molly, I might put that one over to you if that's okay.
Yep, so the ILI in the context of the map was a median for each district council territorial authority area that was excluding any very significant outliers, and that is how we were able to group that median into the respective categories of ILI across the territorial authority boundary.
Thank you, Molly. David, are you comfortable with that? I'll kick on. David, you've got a second question here. Is there a metric that more accurately represents water demand on rural properties? For example, a metric that relates water usage to property size. Molly, am I right in directing that your way? Or?
Sure, sorry, Valita.
Would you like me to respond? So, David, I'm not sure if this one is going to be adequate for you in the sense that, I mean, there are different metrics and different ways of measuring various things, right? And a lot of them have pros and cons. And so what we've tried to do is take a look at where can we be quite consistent and have a standard. But I think we'd be happy to hear any suggestions you have. It might be necessary in some cases to provide two metrics or two bits of analyses, right? Because not everything works for everybody in the right way, but I get it that you want to try and be as representative in the analysis that you do. So maybe if you have some suggestions, that would be great to pop that in the chat as well, if that's okay.
Thanks, Valetta. That's great. Anna Hector, there's a question here. How many wastewater overflows are consented versus unconsented, given pump stations haven't always required a consent?
I can try and respond to that one. Yeah. Hi, Anna. I don't think we don't have the number right at hand, but at the end of the day, we want to get an idea of what are the number of overflows that we are experiencing at the moment. And I get it that some of them might have consents that allow them to overflow, but we're trying to get a bit of an idea, particularly in the network, as to whether some of these overflows are attributable to infrastructure and infrastructure capacity, and in some cases where it is more around the blockages and stuff that might require a bit of public education or a bit more preventative maintenance in the networks. So I don't think we have those numbers exactly at hand. If we do, we can look at the data and get back to you later if that's okay.
Yeah, I would just add to that that we are aware that in quite a few places in New Zealand, overflows are prohibited, even though we know inevitably that they're going to happen. So we do suspect that there's underreporting. One of the things we're doing is we are bringing in a new standard for overflows and bypasses, which comes into force in 2028. And the reason we have put that off until 2028 is to allow for operators to map their overflows, and for those who don't have consents to work through that process, and that will give us a really complete picture of what's going on, and that will be our sort of first step into working on the overflows issue.
David, another question you've got here. Excuse me again. It would be good to see how the changes in the volume of water supplied networks correlate with temperature. I'm not so sure that's a question, but a great point to acknowledge. Pauline Tangaho, will recommendations be delegated to CCOs and what their responsibilities might be? Sarah, maybe a question your way. Is that okay?
Well, so I guess the recommendations are for operators and owners, and we are now in a changing system where we've got our new CCOs and water organisations standing up. So I would expect that those recommendations now apply to them, certainly as they kind of over the next year or so, as we see more of them stand up. So those recommendations will sit with them. There's a question there about targeted action. I mean, their recommendations, we will keep track of them. We, for instance, don't necessarily have any particularly directive tools in things like wastewater, that the regional council are the frontline regulators for that. We have a role in that system oversight and in kind of looking at targets and standards and things to sort of improve the system. So we will be reporting on those recommendations, but that is our role as opposed to kind of any kind of regulatory intervention.
Thanks, Sarah. Just to be clear, you're referring there to Rick Barber's question?
Yes, I was. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
That's all good. That's all good. A question from Philip. Any suggestions to assist with chlorine exemptions? How many have been granted? Violetta, is that something I can put your way?
I'm not going to be the best person to answer on that one. That's probably more with our drinking water rules work.
I'd probably recommend having a look on our website to get in touch with either your North or South Island Water Services Manager or contacting our operations inbox, which is also on our website as well. They'll be able to help you.
Great, thanks team. Hopefully, Philip, that helps you and gives you good direction. Are there any other questions people would like to put forward while we've got the speakers and the expertise here? I was in a workshop yesterday and I talked about feeling like an auctioneer. So we'll sort of go with the going, gone moment. And hopefully that works for us. But just want to give you plenty of time. I know there's a lot to digest. I can probably cheekily move us to the final slide, which is, if you haven't, please do read the report. As I'm speaking, I just hope one of my colleagues could maybe just put a link in the chat to the report that's on the website. I think I've talked enough. Cynthia, you've given us a bit more life. So how will you go comparing pre-CCO amalgamation data to post? And Anna, you're in support of that question. I'm on the fly here. Can I ask someone to have a go at that question, please?
Yes, that will be part of our future reporting as we look at trends. At the moment, we're reporting on the basis of the operators, the 71 operators that report to us. The picture of New Zealand is changing, so that will look different in our sort of tables and our reporting. Probably the year after next, I would say it would be more noticeable than next year.
Brilliant. And Sarah, while you're on a roll, I might get you to look at James's question as well, which I think was one that was always coming. Thanks, James.
Yeah, and I did touch on it a little bit at the beginning. So we've only got a little bit of high-level data on stormwater in the report. We certainly know that this is something we would like to report on, and we will be looking at how we can put in place some measures and start that reporting. The first thing we're doing will be to put out a bit of a sort of engagement paper on stormwater. So watch this space, that's just about to be published. We're really keen to talk to the sector about stormwater issues, the tools that we have available at the authority and how we can use them. So that will be the first thing we do, but we are very keen to start gathering data and reporting on stormwater.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll go back to my auctioneer pose and we'll just give it another few seconds and otherwise we'll look to close out. Very grateful for everyone that's turned up today. I want to acknowledge the 4 speakers and contributors, Sarah, Molly, Violetta and Bella. There's an immense team behind this that puts this report together. Definitely acknowledge them. But I think most of all, you, the audience, and your counterparts, you're the water community of New Zealand. And this report wouldn't come through without your hard work. So on behalf of the authority, we really want to offer thanks. And of course, also remind you that we'll be coming around again next year. So please keep up the good work. Craig, you've mentioned a correlation between water metering and lower consumption. Is that due to volumetric billing associated with metering or the metering itself? Violetta, I'm hoping you might be able to address that one.
I think in general, a lot of the time, whenever there's water metering, you'll see that there will be a change, right? Because people's behaviors start changing. And then volumetric metering probably has the biggest type of impact. I'm not sure whether our data has gone into that level of detail this round, but that's what one would generally find. Yeah.
Thanks, Violetta. And if I'm looking correctly, and apologies if I'm not, but Di Rump, you've got your hand up. Is that? Can you take the microphone? We may have settings that restrict 1,000 voices. I apologise, Di. Is there any opportunity maybe to type a few words into the chat? Okay, I may have to leave it there. Di, thank you, and acknowledging your thanks. Really appreciate it. There's some hard work going on here by the team, I must say. Proud of my counterparts. Right, closing karakia, and thank you again. Kia whakaeria te tapu, kia watea e te ara, kia tariki whakatahi e, kia tariki whakatahi e, haumi e, hui e, taiki e. Slanga foil. Thank you, everybody.